Hey everyone, welcome to week 46. This is day 3. This is Wednesday. This is our ongoing intent week. So on Monday, we clearly strayed off from our original intent. And even though it wasn't quite the painting that we wanted to do, it came out pretty nice. And yesterday for Spanish Tuesdays, Martes de Español, we were actually able to execute the idea of the painting that I had in mind initially. So we'll see how today's painting effort goes. Okay, let's get started. This is day 3. This is our ongoing intent week. And the week has turned into a bit of a whirlwind. I think that the lesson that we had in humility, based on the first painting that we did on Monday, is actually amazing. You know, it's pretty invaluable because it showed us that, here I am trying to make videos, and I think of these videos not really as academic, but I do feel that there's a little bit of an academic nature to them. So I know that I'm not free of the responsibility that you should have when you're trying to propose something as being considered academic. So I know that some people will be able to look at these videos and understand them as tools that they can learn from. And in that sense, I always feel, I guess, not a little bit of pressure, but I am conscious of how people can take some of these videos. For me personally, they are just an accompaniment. They are my company while I paint. This is my diary. This is a visual log where I try to make sense of what happened during the painting act. And many times I find reason for things, and many times I identify challenges. Many times I tell myself, wow, that was actually successful. I undertook a series of challenges and I recognized how I was supposed to solve them. And I was able to resolve that problem through painting. And it doesn't happen often, but many times I look back and say, wow, that was cool. That was a very cool experience. And you feel a little bit proud because you know that you got somewhere. I think these are the minority of cases. This doesn't happen often. And based on this year, I'm pretty sure I could say without a doubt that most of the paintings I struggle with. Most of them, I mean, the vast majority of them are experiences that I have to work really, really hard to try to get somewhere. And in that sense, I think this week, intent sort of means, yeah, this is my original plan, but it also means it is just a stepping stone. It is a starting point. And after that, so many things can go wrong. I mean, so many things. So it's actually really funny to put myself in a situation, to design this week so that I can really emphasize what that feeling feels like. Specifically, just trying to do something, like honing in on this idea of saying, okay, I want to do this. Let me see if I have the know-how and I have the ability and I have the experience to be able to execute it. And on Monday, well, it just goes to show you that you may think you have the ability and the know-how and the experience, and you may be able to rationalize how to solve something. And the truth is, as soon as you get started, the painting can go sideways in so many different fashions that it's a test. Every single painting is a test. It's a test of knowledge. It's a test, for me, most of all, patience. And I think Monday was one of those days that I was like, okay, just push. Push as far as you can go. Try to make sense of all these things that are going on and try to make sense of them in real time. I think most of us know how difficult that is. Many times we need like a fortnight to just say, I got it. Finally, I can see the light. It's almost like trying to solve a puzzle. And you may work a whole day and a whole night just trying to solve a specific puzzle, and you just don't see it. You're completely blind to it. And, you go to bed, you wake up in the morning because you've thought about it all night. You wake up, you have fresh eyes. As soon as you sit down, you solve it in like 2 minutes. And you're like, how did that happen? Like, how did I not have this clarity yesterday when I needed it? I needed to be able to identify these things yesterday, not today. And that's just us impatiently speaking. That's just our urge to do everything at the moment, super quickly, very efficiently, get done with it, be praised, die a hero. But the truth is, we need time. Most of us just need time. Time to let all these busy thoughts that we have in our head just kind of settle, and eventually we achieve some sense of clarity. And to have that, to be able to, know that you can try to invoke this feeling, to invoke this attitude, where you just tell yourself, okay, I know I'm lost. Let's try to find a way out while I'm working. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. This is not something that I think is natural. I also learned this lesson where I told myself, I wasn't telling myself I'm going to do a sergeant. I'm going to paint a sergeant. That would be so insanely pedantic. It would be delusional for me to believe that I would be able to paint like Sargent. Nobody paints like Sargent. So it's nonsense when you kind of say, I'm going to try to paint this like Sargent. Or like a couple of weeks back when we were trying to investigate what it means to paint like Rembrandt. But we weren't trying to paint like Rembrandt because it's impossible. What we were trying to say was, what can I learn from Rembrandt? What can I apply to my own painting when I look at a Rembrandt? And in many ways, that's what I was trying to do on Monday. What can I learn from Sargent and apply it to my painting on Monday? I know I understand what a Sargent painting means, what a Sargent painting is, and all the value that's inherent to Sargent. And I think, looking back, because I was looking back at the video, I think the first minutes of the video, which actually probably translate to like the first 45 minutes of the painting, I think I was on the right track. I really do. When I looked at it, I was like, that's not bad. It had a ton of like really nice attitude. There was an inherent drawing to it. And I realized that when I needed to be careful, I instead opted to continue to be bold. So my marks were very chunky and they were very deliberate and very expressive. And that was not the time for them. That's so cool when we can record ourselves. This was actually something that completely panicked me at the beginning because I formally had never really recorded myself before. So looking back at me painting and making an attempt to make sense of what I was doing during that painting session was really something super foreign to me, and it felt super weird. I mean, it doesn't feel like an out-of-body experience. No, but you actually remember what you were trying to do, and you remember what you were thinking about while you were doing it, but then you also see the result. You can also gauge the result, but in a very different way. I think that's what feels different. When you're painting at that moment, your ability to understand what is happening, again, real time, is very different from when I'm sitting back, I'm looking at this screen and I'm watching this YouTube video. I'm saying, well, that was a good moment of the painting. Why didn't I see it? Why wasn't I able to say, I should slow down here? And I think that was the most important part. I think that was the part where I got lost. I should have just really slowed down. And it doesn't mean that I can't make beautiful brushstrokes. In my mind, I think I have to fight a little bit with this because when I think of slowing down, I just think of tightening up, and I think that I won't have the ability to be expressive. And I think that if I slow down, I have to overly render something. And it's not that at all. It just means that I have to take more time to mix something, to search for something in my palette, and then to put that brushstroke on the surface. That is something that I have to be super careful about. I'm supposed to show you guys clarity, and I clearly wasn't able to do that. And I think yesterday's effort was a little bit better. And yesterday for Spanish Tuesdays, I explained how I thought it was easier for me because I think when I saw it with much more clarity. For me, it was almost like a very basic painting. Because there was such a difference in temperature, and because I felt such a difference in temperature, I just told myself, push that difference in temperature. Make that big mass of a wall that's very cool, just make it really cool, make it evidently cool, and make that small window to that interior, that beautiful kind of almost abstract vertical, make it evidently warm. So in essence, it was a painting that was a big mass of blue against a stripe of yellow that held an accent of red. So a really nice way to try to design a painting based on the percentages of our primary colors. So in my mind, I was like, oh, this is super easy. I mean, it's not an easy thing to paint, but at least it was easy to visualize. And I could see myself painting it. I could understand myself painting it. And yesterday I was saying something that was super important. And I think that that's the difference many times when we paint from life or when we're painting from a photo and we don't struggle. It's the fact that when we see this natural condition of light, and I saw these two temperatures just clashing, I was like, oh, I can paint this. In my mind, I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see myself painting this. This is already a painting. I can identify very clearly how to translate what I'm looking at into a painting based on the palette that I've always held so closely to me. It was about being able to identify very, very clearly, very quickly also, the decisions that were going to become painted decisions. Those moments that I saw in nature, in the nature of the inside of our apartment that had to be translated and had to become painted decisions. A lot of the painting on Tuesday was just about execution. You could say the same thing about the painting on Monday, but I think yesterday I described Monday's painting as being ungrateful. Ungrateful in the sense that there was no space for the smallest mistake. Like it would punish me even for the smallest mistake, particularly the ones that had to do with the painting of the contour, with that little stream of light that was traveling through the contour. The painting was like, I'm not having any of this. You either hit this drawing or don't do this painting. So it's a painting that really lived along this very fine line. It was either, like I said on Monday, it was either going to work or not. Yesterday's painting, I thought, was far more grateful. If you discovered that the painting was about these clashing temperatures, contrast in temperatures, so a mass of very cool light against a smaller mass of very warm temperature, and within that very warm temperature, there's an accent of red-orange, and you have a painting basically of blue, yellow, and red, then that's your painting. The drawing in it, I was explaining yesterday, the drawing inside that little stripe that has to signify that tiny little moment of that space is not perfect. I could tell you guys right now, the drawing in there is not 100% accurate, but it doesn't matter. Right now, I'm telling you guys that, but when you looked at the painting, it was not like it was evident that there was a drawing mistake. It's just that the painting itself did not really rely upon drawing accuracy. And I love those sort of paintings. Those paintings where you don't put all your chips into this one little tiny element. And when you do that, if you paint it well, then you hit it out of the park. It's a home run. It's either a home run or you strike out. You can't just bat a single or a double. No. You're going to strike out or it's a beautiful home run. So those sort of paintings, I feel they're very challenging and I like to undertake those challenges many times. But there are other times where I'm like, oh no, I don't want that. That's always like super high stakes, high pressure. I don't want to do that. I want paintings that can speak of other things that don't really rely upon this one single element. So I think yesterday's painting was about that. Now, speaking about single elements in a painting, yesterday I identified big cues that helped me understand the design of that painting, and I saw it very clearly. But that actually speaks about the bigness of the painting, and that obviously helps me because I've always believed that an image should work from big to small. Always. Always, always, always. If you're able to identify the big qualities that hold your image together, then you're golden. But, I'm human, and humans, we love small little details. So I told myself, okay, for today's painting, I'm actually going to hold on to a very, very small detail that speaks about the essence of this plastic bag. I basically did this exercise that many people, particularly like concept illustrators, they do this constantly. There's a ton of people that have to program what materials look like. And they have to understand how light actually behaves when it hits plastic. So this is actually something that many, many artists do, and they do it in a far deeper fashion than the one I'm doing today. Today, I'm just taking one very specific condition of light, and I'm trying to paint that in order to access how light behaves when hitting this plastic bag. I wanted to paint this tiny little traveling of light through the surface of this plastic bag, exemplified by these tiny little shapes of cool light, and then everything else had to be subjected to the value and the temperature of those little highlights. That was very challenging because I'm trying to construct a painting and to understand how a material feels like based upon this tiny, tiny little detail. So again, this is very high stakes here, where you're betting everything on being able to control a lot of your painting in order to be able to paint those little moments of that highlight. And once those are down, then the material qualities of this bag that you're painting are finally configured. And you can have this very sensible response to it. And you can say, yep, it feels like a plastic bag that has air in it. So it was a very trivial moment to want to try and understand through painting, but it was very exciting for me because I love the nature of things. I love to try and understand, hopefully in a very simple manner, those very specific moments. Now, here's the strange thing about this exercise. This doesn't mean that I know how to paint plastic. This doesn't mean that what I did today can turn into this formula of how to paint a plastic bag. And that's why I was comparing myself and making a parallel between what I'm doing right now and what far more intelligent people, far more intelligent artists do when they have to try and understand what happens when light hits plastic and how that surface behaves. That is a far more complex thing. What I think I'm doing here is just saying I'm trying to identify those variables, but for a very highly specific space and moment in time. So it would be super difficult, almost impossible to extrapolate that information and say, based on this one little experience, on this one small painting, we're going to be able to identify and establish rules on how to paint a plastic bag. And I have to say this, many times people want to hear those things. They want to have recipes as to how to approach specific subject matters. But normally it's just so hard to say, yeah, the recipe that you have to follow is this one. And I think that while those recipes do exist, for us painters, I would shy away from understanding things through recipes. I much rather have our own experience dictate those learnings. I much rather say, I don't know how to paint, let's say, waves crashing on the shore. And instead of me going and looking at painters and trying to, through their findings, create this sort of recipe of how to effectively solve this, I would much rather just go to a shore and just watch waves crashing for days and days and weeks and weeks and months. And you have to do the heavy lifting there. Like, you have to try and understand how to do it, because we can say that nature behaves in very specific ways. Many times this is just pure science. This is physics. This is not a matter of interpretation. Like, this is very objective. There is a truth to all of this. So why not just follow what nature and science is telling you? And the thing is, yeah, sure, we could do that. But we would be taking ourselves out of that equation. Because if we do that, then every single person that wants to paint waves crashing has found a sole way of doing it based on science. And then there'd be nothing exciting about you, the human being, the very highly specific human being, deciding to paint crashing waves. And you have to be part of this equation. We are the ones that make this whole exercise exciting. If not, then science would be enough. Why do a painting then? The coolest thing about this is that we have to understand what our place is in all of this. And it is through us, through our perception, through our experiences, through our life, through everything that has shaped the person that we are, that we take all that information, either visual, just by being there and painting day after day from life, or visual information coupled with scientific information. And we take all of that and we just mush it into whatever it is that is going to become our work, our painting. For me, painting a plastic bag is just a wonderful, highly specific experience. But I would never believe that I could, after this experience, say with authority that I know and I could teach a class on how to paint plastics. Because I don't. I would just be ripping people off. I would just take their money and, in the first 2 minutes, just tell them, paint what you see. We're good. You guys can go home. So, no, that's not cool. But it is cool, though. That's actually the essence of everything I do. It's just paint what you see. Insert yourself in a very specific situation and be sensitive to it and paint what you see. And that's what happened today. And I think I was able to recognize that intent of trying to paint a tiny little moment, and based on that little cool highlight that was traveling through that bag, construct this idea of this full plastic bag, this bag full of weighted stuff and also full of air. And I thought it came out really cool. So I was pretty happy with that. So we are 2 out of 3. And I think that's pretty good. For now, we're doing really well. So we still have a couple more days to go. So that batting average can plummet. We still have time. So we'll see how we do in the next couple of days. But that was it for today. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll see you tomorrow, where we give this another shot. We try to identify our intent, and we see what happens when we try and execute it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.